This is a sponsored video, which is fun, and I'm going to share with you about that at the end of the video. So stay tuned because that was a big change and a big decision for me to make. So I want to talk about self-love today. I'm probably going to be all over the place with this one, but when we talk about self-love in the self-love field, self-help field, I think that a lot of people get it mixed up with capital S self-love and lowercase s self-love. So a lot of our conflict within our families, within our social relationships, within our pursuits even, comes from this idea that we have to be lowercase self-love. Like we try to defend our image. We want to love the image of us. We want to love our bodies, which is totally fine. But we have to understand that to love the capital S self, which is what true self-love is about. It is about loving the essence that I am, the am that I am. So I was working with somebody the other day who did not want an old version to be in her life of herself. She actively does not want to be what she was previously. And right after I got off of that call, I saw an old license of mine. And I cringed. I was a little bit repulsed. I was resistant to having ever been that person. And I was like, oh, of course, you have a little bit of work to do right here today, Stace. So I had to look at and really face this image of myself where I'm at least 30 pounds heavier. I'm so bloated, not even just like from the weight, just like I'm bloated. I don't feel good. I'm sick all the time. Like I know the frequency in which I lived at that chapter of my life. I was overworked, underpaid, trying constantly, never getting anywhere, not knowing what I was doing wrong, trying to just be right, but it was never good enough for me or for anything that I was doing. It sucked. I never want to be that girl again, right? But I can't resist that I've been that girl and that girl actually lives inside of me. The potential of being that human being is something that I am. So I had to look at this image and kind of chisel away the weight, kind of say, okay, what are you feeling in there, under there? And who do I have to be as somebody who loves my capital S self at this point in my evolution, which is I love the essence that lives inside of that person, even if I didn't love being that person. Okay. So I can look at myself objectively in that photo and say, who do I have to be to show you? Who do I have to be today to show this past version of myself that I love her? Who do I have to be to take care of that version that doesn't know how to stop eating, that doesn't know how to stop showing up in really terrible social situations because I'm bored and I need drama, who doesn't know how to stop the cycle of like nonstop train wreck thoughts? How do I show her that I see her, I know what she's aiming for, and then I can take care of her? How do I love that past version of myself? And I do that by being an example to her, to this past version of myself, by eating healthy, and it takes a while to get to that point because you don't know how shitty you feel until you feel better. And then you're like, holy God, I can't believe how shitty I let myself live for that period of time. But when you get clean, you want to be cleaner in every way. So how do I be the example for this old version of myself that I never want to be again because I love her enough to not want her to feel that way? So what I want you to understand is that when we are resisting an old image of ourselves, we need to integrate that image, but we also need to be aware that even when we were in that image, we were still the being that we're trying to love today, right? It just changes form. And in my experience, when you love the self will reflect the form accordingly for you. So if we resist the old image, that image is in charge of us. It will always be our base point, okay? And that image, that potential reality is always inside of us, and we have to love that part of ourselves. So if we look at this from a purely, like if I look at, and this is how I believe in unity above all, in union, I suppose, above all, in the sense that I believe every religion on the planet is right. I believe God is everything. And I believe that that even encompasses the devil. Okay? So God, I am an aspect of God asking about God itself, right? And the devil is an aspect of God that I can ask about as an aspect of God. And in my experience, that's why God is more powerful than the devil, because it's the devil itself, who isn't a real thing, it's a frequency, is so much smaller than the all-encompassing power of God. So if I am in my divine self and I go, I love that self, I have to understand that because God is all, and I am an aspect of God, I am all. That means that a part of me has a little bit of the devil, right? Whether you want to believe it or not, when we say, okay, don't be tempted by the devil, it's just don't chase your own goddamn demons. Like, that's what it's about. And everybody has them. And everybody who's religious going, oh, they're like evil because they do this thing. You might be really good at not chasing your own demons or playing with your own demons, but other people are not. Doesn't mean you don't have them. Okay? So in my experience, to look at them, to honor them, to know what they are so they're not running the show, and that's the essence of shadow work, is vital to love the capital S self, because the capital S self is everything, and it is nothing at the same time, but really it's everything. It's nothing to the image, it's nothing to the ego, but it's everything. So when we're loving our capital S self, and you might look at this and go, how the hell do I even do that? Well, it starts by acknowledging that your demons are your demons and your angels are your angels, and you are simultaneously creator and destroyer. And you have the potential to focus your frequency in any direction. And if you choose the God-given direction, it's going to not be like, oh, I'm this perfect human being. It's going to be like, I am a collaboration of all of these things, and I own that. I'm aware that these are like things that happen inside of me. So if you can love that you are all of the things, you are the bitch, you are the animal, you are the lover, you are the nurturer, you are the murderer, you are all of these things, and you're divine. Okay? So those things are like layers of objects that you are. They're thought frequencies, they're patterns that go on in the psyche that densify into this plane, and then you are this physical form. So for me to love myself, I have to love all of myself. I have to love the fat girl. I have to love the insecure girl. I have to love the girl who still gets absolutely violently ill after I post something that's too vulnerable for me. I have to love the girl who sometimes really can't stand my kids, or sometimes really still can't stand my mom. I have to love that I am seeing things that don't feel like love, and I have the capability to transmute those things that don't feel like love into a vibrational space of God itself, which is love. And that doesn't mean that love doesn't sometimes hurt. It doesn't mean, love itself is all encompassing. So it really is unconditional. True love is capital L love anyway. So I want to use this example that feels important to me. My friend Jackie, her husband is Kevin Jorgensen, who climbed the Dawn Wall. If you have not watched that documentary on Netflix, check it out. It's really good. It's called The Dawn Wall, obviously. DAWNWALL. And I met Jackie right before Kev was about to do this trek. And I hadn't watched the documentary until recently, but when we think of I think we have this idea of selfless service. If you look at, just following the path of the capital S self and being of service to the world. Sometimes that doesn't look like necessarily doing anything. And what I mean by this is Tommy and Kev climbed this wall. Tommy's inspiration to do this was, I am down and out. I just lost everything that I thought that I wanted in my life. And he goes out to El Capitan, sees this wall. He's a rock climber, so he knows that other people have done various parts of the wall, but nobody's done the Dawn Wall. It is deemed impossible to do the Dawn Wall. And he comes out and he's looking at the wall in this really down and out place. And he's like really sitting with himself, his higher self. And kind of just like, okay, I'm open. Like, what the hell is this? I'm guided to do whatever. And I'm obviously putting words into his story, but this is the way I interpret it. And this is the way I'm going to share it with you. Is he goes out and he sees a new possibility because he was open to his higher self. He sees a possibility that wasn't previously available to him. And he goes, oh my God, I could climb that wall. For the first time, it became possible to him. He climbed the wall in selfless service to the self in him that said, holy shit, that is possible. Holy shit, you are being pulled forward. That is a potential reality in your reality. And people can look at that and go, that wasn't selfless. He did that totally for himself. Yes, he did do it for himself. And at the end of it, there was this, first of all, finishing. Please watch the documentary because there's way more to it. That was so inspirational for me. But at the end of it, the documentary landed on my couch. It's a critically acclaimed documentary. And I was sobbing. And it transformed my friend Jackie's life because out of nowhere, they went from doing this thing that was just like purely by passion to holy shit, the media and the whole world is watching because we're doing it. And overnight, their lives changed like that. And it wasn't just a blessing to them. It was a blessing to the world that Tommy followed his hunch. He took his God-given idea and he grounded it into a reality. And you could say that's not selfless service, but in my opinion and experience, it was because he listened to the divine in him that propelled him forward, and that pulled other people forward behind him. He did what is impossible, according to other people. So when I have a lot of people who talk to me about, like, I know this stuff, but I can't practice it or whatever. I want you to understand that living the principle of following that self in you, it takes way more guts than it does brains. So I was speaking with somebody the other day at my daughter's swim class who was saying, oh, I believe everything that you're saying. Like, if we all just followed our own hearts, everything would be great and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, she hates her job. She's like kind of bored. She shoves some shit under the rug as far as like what's going on in her life. And she believes intellectually that if we followed what I'm speaking of, that it would probably be good for the world. But belief is one thing. It's great. If you can't implement the belief with some fire in your guts, that belief holds you back. It actually weirdly holds you back. So sometimes we're afraid to even demonstrate our truth because we're afraid that it's not going to be received well. But what happens is that truth still stays there, and we're actually like weirdly suffocated by our own truth. We're held back by our truth. The truth isn't here to hold us back. It's here to be expressed, to be moved out into the world. So somebody asked me today, Teresa, hi. She said, my partner isn't on this path. Does he need to be? How do I regulate this? Because I don't know if I'm just a self-help junkie and he is just a different person. This is my answer to this. If you love your highest self, you don't need your partner to do anything, okay? If you love your partner's highest self, you don't need to make them do anything. So it is a challenge because if it were up to me, I'd be like, babe, we're going to Peru and doing ayahuasca for 10 days and it's going to be amazing. He's not that guy. He's a football and beer kind of guy, okay? I love him. I love that he's a football and beer kind of guy. And I think that for me, this was the hardest thing for me to really grapple. And it's really hard for a lot of my clients to grapple too, which is we think that if we don't have a story, if people don't have a really suffrage kind of story, that they're not wise. That's somewhere deeply, sadly embedded in human consciousness. And that's not true. Some people who have been protected, who have been sheltered, so to speak, from the traumas that we might feel like we had to deal with, they came in with a different kind of wisdom than we did. And they asked for a different kind of learning than we did. And their wisdom isn't negated because they don't have a really horrible story to go with it. My partner is possibly the wisest person I've ever met. And it doesn't come because he searches for wisdom. It doesn't come because he's trying to figure himself out. It comes because he settles into himself. And so the journey is interesting because he's not waking up every day and meditating. He's waking up pissed off. And I'm the one going, oh, I have to meditate to deal with this shit, right? Or sometimes I go, if he would just tweak this energy thing, I know it would be easier. I know it would be better for me, right? Or even for him. But he's not there. And it's so tempting to want to pull him forward, to want to have his answers. But guess what? That's taking away me keeping focus on my God-given essence and self. Okay? So if I look at my partner and go, okay, there's a part of me that is like that if I wasn't meditating, I'd wake up like a bitch. Or if I wasn't just being forced to sit here and drink a beer and watch football on a Sunday, I would be running around trying to clean up the whole house and being the asshole mom who can't sit still, right? So in these ways, he's my light shadow. He forces me to sit still. He forces me to be okay as I am. And I think that if you have a partner that you're even asking this about, it means that you have a partner who's forcing you to be okay as it is, who will say, this is good enough for me. And as women, and I had a therapist on BetterHelp, which I'll talk to you about in a second, who I come to him and I'm like, oh, this is really stressful and a struggle for me because as a woman, we're never really that satisfied. And men are just like, oh, I'm happy. It's fine the way it is. I don't understand why you need more. And my therapist said, yeah, that ended my marriage. And I was like, well, were you legitimately happy? He's like, yeah, I was. I'm like, how? How do you look at that life and think that that's happy? And there's wisdom in that. There's so much wisdom in that, not wanting more, not needing more, not being more, not changing, not doing anything but settling into this is it. This is the mess that we made. This is the love that we have. This is the things that we bought over the course of our lifetime. And that's good enough for me. Okay? So we can destroy marriages. We can destroy relationships, and we destroy the relationship with ourselves, which is the most important thing to realize in this whole thing, by saying everything has to change because this isn't good enough for me. You're not good enough for me. The self. This image that I'm holding isn't good enough for me. When we can look at the image and love through the image, instead of try to manufacture the image in a way that's going to be more loving for the outside world to validate, we're going to be in a much better place. That's capital S, self-love. So your partner doesn't need to be on the journey. Because, well, here's the thing. They're on the journey. It just doesn't look like yours. They're on the journey. My partner's journey is side by side to mine. Doesn't look a thing like mine. So there's that piece. And now I want to talk to you. So many people ask me about referrals. So many people. And the truth is, I'm not in California, guys. I don't know why everybody thinks I'm in California. I'm on the East Coast. East Coast girl, very rooted in the East Coast. Love the East Coast. Also love the West Coast. Very Jurassic out there. But so I don't have somebody that I can directly refer you to that does what I do because nobody's me. I work with healers who go, Stace, sometimes I channel you, but I can't even I can't pull together what that channel is, right? So what I can direct you to, and this took me a minute. So just so you know, what I'm about to say took me a huge frog in my throat kind of minute to do. But I was offered a sponsorship opportunity with BetterHelp. I immediately was like, no way, there's no way I'm doing that because I don't know these people, I don't trust these people, blah, blah, blah. And everybody kept influxing me going, do you have a referral? Do you have a referral? Do you have a referral? So about 3 weeks later, 2 people that I know that I worked with had told me that they previously worked with BetterHelp and that at the time it was good for them. So I contacted the guy back and I was like, fine, I will try it. So did BetterHelp for 3 months. My experience was pretty awesome. I'm actually like, I really like my therapist. I like to, I just like the aspect of somebody reflecting. So I think that if we can be open, because that was me, I was closed. I was like, no way. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to be open to not knowing everything, to being open to what this person has to say, even if I think that I already know what this person is saying to me, or even if I already looked at it that way, I'm going to hear them reflect that to me. And it actually has been really helpful for me, especially over this journey of this like crazy influx as an empath, being like, oh my God, these people are like now watching. You get to pick your therapist. You get to pick what you want them to basically focus on, what experiences they have. You can pick if they're a male or a female, and they're always available. So my situation, I'm not always available. I'm never going to be that person. I cannot answer a million emails a day. I cannot have a million texts coming into my phone a day. I do not have unlimited hours in my day. But BetterHelp does. These people, I don't know if they're stupid or saints, but to be fair, in my experience, my therapist, I guess I'll just keep his name quiet, is a saint. I've been really grateful for him over these past few months. So BetterHelp is sponsoring me. So I told you, I have like some issues about it because I'm like, oh, is this really like okay? Is this really where I'm going? But they are sponsoring me, which is really fun. And I will get a kickback if you guys sign up under me. My justification for even trying it in the first place was if these people contacted me and they're willing to sponsor me, they must be open. They must be like kind of cool as an organization. And then I had those clients say like, actually, it was pretty helpful for me. And then somebody else came who wanted to work with me and was like, oh, my BetterHelp therapist is telling me to do this thing. So I did it. I dug it. They're available. Neither of us, BetterHelp nor me, are a crisis kind of situation. But where I'm at right now, I have a wait list that is reaching 200 people. And that's pretty crazy. So I'm in the process of leveling up and shifting up my business model so I can actually reach you when I, in a quicker way. I want to expedite that process. But in the meantime, the people who I have talked to about BetterHelp and my own experience has been that actually it was pretty freaking cool. I'm a big fan. And I think I'm going to keep doing it, which is funny because I haven't had that therapy, and I don't have a business coach. I don't have a life coach. Like I haven't been in the process in a long time. So I feel really grateful actually to BetterHelp for even reaching out and offering to sponsor me and offering me the opportunity to share their message with you. And then ideally, if you like them or love them, that's good Stacy vibes, right? Because we get to share the vibes and be open, even if we think that nobody can help us. I think a lot of us are just closed off to receiving help. I know that has been me a lot on my journey. I know that that's definitely something I still struggle with, where I'm like, you don't really get it because of this. But as I said, some people don't have to have had the story to understand. And they might not even understand the frequency, but they can look at the frequency, even if they can't even if they're not empathing with it, and reflect it to you so you can shift the frequency, in my experience. So BetterHelp is available to you. They're sponsoring me, which is pretty cool. I'm going to put the link below. But at the end of the day, no matter who you work with, no matter what goes on in your partnerships, when you follow, in my experience, when you follow the capital S self, and you love on that self, and you recognize it's not an angel, and it definitely isn't the devil that we thought that it was. It's all of those things. And you can love it anyway and act accordingly and recognize that you can love all of the images in which it has passed through over the course of its life. I remember being a kid. I literally remember being a kid and realizing I was going to be in the same body my whole life and being like, oh, why do I have to be in this body my whole life? And what's funny is that it changes and transforms, and my form is always shifting. So it's like when we can love the image, we can love the form, we are loving the higher self, which will, it's like when we love the higher self, because it is everything, we're loving everything inside of it, which is the image, which is the cognitions that go on in it. We can watch them distantly then, which is the body. So when you love the capital S self, you're loving all that is about you. And that will just naturally kind of trickle down effect and shift the image that you don't like. If you keep loving the capital S self instead of trying to change the lowercase s self, which is like the image, so that you can be loved. It goes in reverse. Okay. I hope you guys are awesome. Bye.